There could be a ceiling with massive lights that filtered through to grow the fields, or the ceiling might be the floor of another level, with more people raising strange animals. Perhaps those people grew light itself and poured it to the pastures sieved by the clouds. Caiden scrubbed sweat off his forehead, forgetting his grimy hand again.
The overseers must live up there. Why else do we rarely see them?
He'd encountered two during his appraisal at 10 years old when they'd confirmed his worth and assignment and given him his brand, the mark of merit. He'd had a lot fewer questions then. They'd worn sharp, hard metal clothes over their figures and faces, molded weirdly or layered in plates, and Caiden couldn't tell if there were bodies beneath those shapes or just parts, like a machine. One overseer had a human-like shape but was well over 2 meters tall. The other reshaped itself like jelly. And there had been a third they'd talked to, whom Caiden couldn't see at all. His father's sigh came out a growl. They don't come from the sky, and the answers aren't gonna change if you keep asking the same questions. Caiden recalled the overseer's parting words at appraisal. As a mechanic determination, it will become your job to maintain this world, so finely tuned it functions perfectly without us.
But why? A mechanic doesn't need curiosity to fix broken things.
His father disappeared back into the machine. Caiden exhaled forcibly, bottled up his frustrations, and crawled back into the maintenance port. The tube was more cramped at 14 than it had been at 10, but his growth spurt was pending, and he still fit in spaces his father could not. The port was lined with cables, chemical wires, and faceplates stenciled in at least 8 different languages Caiden hadn't been taught in the stricture. His father told him to ignore them, and to ignore the blue vials filled with a liquid that vanished when directly observed, and the porous metal of the deepest ducts that seemed to breathe inward and out. A mechanic doesn't need curiosity. Caiden searched for the bolts he thought he'd left in a neat pile. The more I understand and answer, the more I can fix. Frustration amplified his words, bouncing them through the metal of the machine. Caiden! His father's voice boomed from a chamber below. Reverberations settled in a long pause. Sometimes knowing doesn't fix things. Another non-answer fit for a child. Caiden gripped a wrench and stared at old wall dents where his frustration had escaped him before. Over time, fatigue dulled that anger. Maybe that was what had robbed his father of questions and answers. But his friend Leda often said the same thing. You can't fix everything, Caiden. I can try. He found his missing bolts at the back of the port, scattered and rolled into corners. He gathered them up and slapped faceplates into position, wrenching them down tighter than needed. The adults always said, "This is the way things have always been. Nothing's broken." But it stayed that way because no one tried anything different. Leda had confided in a nervous whisper, "Different is why I'll fail appraisal." If she could fail and be rejected simply because her mind worked differently, the whole system was broken. The aerator's oscillating unit was defaced with Caiden's labels and drawings, where he'd transformed the bulbous foreign script into imagery or figures. Recent, neatly printed labels stood out beside his younger marks. He hesitated at a pasted-up photo he'd nicked from the stricture. A foreign landscape with straight trees and intertwined branches. White rocks, punctured, bluish sand, with pools of water clearer than the ocean he'd once seen. It was beautiful, the place his parents would be retired to when he replaced them. Part of the way things had always been.
Yes, stop everything.
His mother was speaking to his father, and her voice echoed from below, muffled and rounded by the tube. She never visited during work.
Stop, they said. No more repairs.
His father responded.